よう、おかえりなさい。私のリビングルームへ。今日はアプリで日本語を勉強し方について話したいと思います。さて、始めましょう。Hey there! Welcome to the living room for language learners. Today, I would like to talk about how I use apps to learn Japanese. I quite like using apps because it's a convenient way to learn your target language any place whenever you feel like it. And if you use it correctly, you can learn quite a lot. So let's get right into it. Before that, don't forget to follow, like, and subscribe on whichever platform you're listening in on. Also, feel free to follow me on my Instagram page at thelivingroom411 for any questions, comments, and to see the latest updates on my podcast. So sit back, relax, and enjoy the sound of my podcast. You must be thinking, apps? What's the point of that? Well, apps aren't supposed to make you fluent in a language. They are there to help you get familiar with the language when you're just starting out. And they're a fun way to keep you practicing and reviewing what you learn in your textbooks and classroom. Since you can use these apps on your phone, even people who don't have lots of time can study with the little free moments they can scrape up. Even little steps can get you a far distance if you're consistent and persistent with your studies. Apps allow you to do that. That's why they're so great. Apps are also great because they make you learn in many different formats to help you remember the materials, and it's like a game, so it can be fun. For example, most apps show you pictures, give you audio, and make you match things, type things, find mistakes, and review a lot. If you actually make an effort to complete these tasks, remember the vocabulary, internalize how to use the grammar you've learned, and try to use it in your life, there's no reason why you wouldn't be able to speak, even at a basic level. Sometimes it's not the apps that are bad, but us not taking advantage of all the information it provides. Now that we know how apps are great, I'd like to share the apps that I use to study. I like to learn vocabulary through context, but I hate reading. That's why I like the app's Link. That's Lingq. This is an app where you can read stories and listen to them at all levels. You can find all sorts of text on Link, but they also provide their own course of short stories. For Japanese, they have a total of 60 stories that I have been studying with. These stories are formatted so that you first read the story in third person, then first person, and finally answer, question, answer form at the end. That way, you hear the same vocabulary words at least 5 times in the story, and since the style of writing changes, you see the words in different forms as well. You can also listen to an audio of the text at any speed you're comfortable with, and can tap on any word in the text to see the definition, which then automatically saves into an SRS flashcard deck directly on Link. You can also import your own text and videos that have subtitles and have all the benefits of Link with the material you're actually interested. They have many other cool features to help you with your studies, so I highly recommend you check it out. There is a free version, but you have a limit to how many words you can save and definitions that you can see. Also, how much material you can import. So if you're serious about Link and don't want the hassle of looking up all the words and making your own flashcards, I recommend the paid version if you can afford it. It's really worth it if you like this style of learning. On the other hand, making your own flashcards can also be a form of studying. So even the free version's not so bad. I'm just lazy. The way I learn through Link is by going through the short stories, then reviewing my flashcards, and finally listening to past stories to help me retain them. Since the stories already repeat in different formats, I just listen to the story once and then tap all the words I didn't know as I'm listening. Then, I look through the full translation of the text, and if I didn't completely understand it, I'd listen to the story again. Once I'm done listening, I go back to the beginning and read the text out loud. This helps me to recognize and remember kanji and words easier. I'm really bad at reading and reading comprehension, so if I read it out loud, it becomes good practice to help me improve in those fields. Next, I go to the flashcard decks on Link and review 20 words that are in my vocabulary list. This helps me to keep the words that I've learned in my memory. Finally, to solidify the words in my mind, I just listen to the old stories over and over on my free time until I practically almost memorized the story without even knowing it. Of course, I don't recall 100% of the stories, but enough to make it easier to remember the vocabulary words and read it out loud next time if I want to go back and review. This is how I gained so much vocabulary, which helped me improve my conversational skills. The key to unlocking conversational skills is to know lots of words. Link helps you do that. The other app I use for learning is called Lingodeer. It's like Duolingo on steroids. Lingodeer is specialized in teaching Japanese, Chinese, and Korean. There are other languages, but I would only recommend paying for Lingodeer if you're going to study one of these languages. Lingodeer gives you everything Duolingo does, but so much more. For example, all the textbooks that I've used to learn Japanese give you a story, grammar explanation, and practice. This is literally a textbook in app form. Lingodeer has their own grammar explanations at the beginning of each lesson, then fun practice, and a story at the end. It has a beautiful native speaking voice that narrates the whole app, so you won't even sound like a robot. Also, they have a built-in recording system where they will have a native speaker read aloud a sentence, then you record yourself saying it as well. This lets you compare your pronunciation with a native person to see if you're saying it correctly. You can record yourself as many times as you'd like until you sound like the audio, which is great pronunciation practice. Also, when you get to the stories, while you're reading the text, they give you questions to test if you're actually understanding the content. This helps you improve your reading comprehension and forces you to pay attention to what you're actually reading. Although the beginner course may be too basic for anyone that already has some knowledge of Japanese, they also have 3 more levels for you to challenge. I haven't got to them yet, but another friend of mine who completed the whole thing said that the more advanced levels are really worth it. So I can't wait to get to them soon. The way I learned through Lingodeer is by completing a level every day and then going to the review section to do a fun review quiz and study flashcards of previously learned words and grammar rules. This helps me to increase my vocabulary and helps me to build on my understanding of the grammar that I've already learned because I'm getting more explanation and more practice aside from my textbook. I think this app is really worth it and would recommend it 100%. But if you don't make an effort to review and understand how to use the grammar and the vocabulary that you've been taught, then you won't make any progress. Lingodeer is a great tool, but only if you're willing to put in the effort to make it work. To be honest, this rule applies to anything you use to study. In addition, paying money for it kind of encourages you to take full advantage of it because you don't want to spend your money for nothing. So you can use that as motivation to work harder as well. To end, I would like to briefly mention some apps that were recommended from friends of mine that are also learning Japanese. One of my friends started out using lessons from NHK, Nippon Hoso Kyokai, or Japanese Broadcasting Organization. I hope I pronounced that right. This is an app where you can listen to the latest information on Japan and Asia. They also have another app that has lessons for Japanese learners that are beginners. Next, I'd like to share 2 other websites that were recommended. They may also be found as apps or accessible on your phone as well. They are Wanikani for kanji and Japanese Pod 101 for lessons on grammar and other things to help improve your Japanese. I would also recommend these 2 programs because they've helped so many of my friends improve their kanji and Japanese skills. So let's check them out together. Finally, I'd also like to add that Duolingo has helped many people learn languages because they figured out how to use it effectively with their studies. Because they took advantage of what it had to offer, They were able to communicate in their target language even at a basic level. I was very impressed at their accomplishments through Duolingo, but it was just not for me. That doesn't mean it isn't for you, so you should give it a try as well. Now, there are many more apps out there, but I think we all get the idea. So thank you for joining me in the living room for language learners, where we learn languages the way they should be, through community.